Assalamualaikum, brothers and sisters. So today we're going to be responding to Apostate Prophet's attempt to quote-unquote debunk Mohammed Hijab's interview with the Muslim historian Adnan Rashid. However, AP was that lazy that he just re-uploaded another video from a smaller channel by the name of J Apologetics. But regardless, after watching this 3-minute response video to an hour-long interview, it was just as bad as all of AP's attempts to smear Islam as supposedly anti-Semitic.
You may have heard Muslims claim that Jews and Muslims have always lived in peace since the rise of Islam, and it was only until the Zionists of the 20th century that caused the relations to fail.
The Jewish people, from the very advent of Islam in Arabia all the way up to the 1930s, coexisted with the Muslims peacefully. In fact, they felt protected, they felt that they are prosperous, they felt that they are safe.
You can always count on Muslims to lie and distort history.
What Adnan Rashid said is not some subjective claim, as what J Apologetics would like to imply. It's a historical fact. Take, for instance, what Professor David J. Westerstein from Vanderbilt University had to say in the Jewish Chronicle. Islam saved Jewry. This is an unpopular, discomforting claim in the modern world, but it is a historical truth. The coming of Islam saved the Jews, providing a new context in which they not only survived, but flourished, laying foundations for subsequent Jewish cultural prosperity, also in Christendom throughout the medieval period into the modern world. Had Islam not come along, Jewry in the West would have declined into disappearance, and Jewry in the East would have just become another Oriental quest. He's just spitting facts. There's a reason why Jews in Spain, for an example, experienced its golden age under Muslim rule, and that is why when Christians expelled 100,000 Jews during the Spanish Inquisition, guess where most of them fled to? To the Ottoman Empire. And speaking about the Ottoman Empire, because we're at the topic already, do you know that Sultan Mehmed al-Fatih himself declared to his Jewish community that it was his Islamic responsibility by Allah to look after them? Do you know that Bayezid II ordered his governors to accept Jewish migrants, even threatening death if these Jews were harmed? Do you know that according to the Israeli scholar Amnon Cohen, Jews expected justice to come quicker from Sharia courts than their own rabbinical court? In fact, so many Jews were going to these Sharia courts that when local Jewish rabbis ordered their community to stop even using excommunication as a threat, not a single Jew listened to them. That is why by the end of the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire had the largest Jewish population in the entire world and the only Jewish majority city in the entirety of Europe. That is a testament to Islam's just treatment of Jews, something that J Apologetics and Apostate Prophet ignores in this entire video.
What we'll do is look at what Maimonides says. Maimonides, someone who they mention and talk about in this discussion on this very topic.
So Maimonides stands as a towering figure in Jewish history. He's called the second Moses. He's also called the Rambam. So he was heavily inspired by Muslim philosophy of the time. He wrote in the Arabic language. He was pretty much a Muslim philosopher.
Oh yeah.
Without being a Muslim.
The arguments are very similar, to be honest.
Wow, they really have no concern for the truth at all. Contrary to the narrative that they're trying to push, Maimonides actually proves the opposite point.
J Apologetics, you made a claim that Mohammed Hijab and Adnan align. Fine, but you didn't actually prove it. Instead, you ignored everything said in the original interview and you just proceeded to ramble on about a completely separate point, which don't worry, I'll get to soon. For now, I just want to focus on Maimonides because everything said in the original interview was true. In the Guided of the Perplexed, arguably the most important piece of literature in Jewish history, Maimonides admits himself that rabbinical Judaism, quote, consists of matters which they borrowed from the Mutakallimun of Islam. In particular, it was from the Kalam movement that our Jewish co-religionists borrowed whatever they borrowed, and it was their method that they followed. If you don't think that's enough, why was it that Maimonides' 13 Principles of Faith, one of the most important texts in Jewish theology, mind you, used words such as usul, roots, qawaid, fundamentals of Jewish beliefs, i'tiqadat, and of the law, Sharia? And that is why, according to the medieval Jewish philosopher Isaac Abarbanel, Maimonides was a response to, quote, outside influences, that being Islam. So if you're confused about everything I said, all you to know is this. Maimonides was influenced by Islam. Full stop. This is something that J Apologetics doesn't even mention in this entire video, and instead he just proceeds to abuse Maimonides by showing what he said about Islam. And yeah, what he said about Islam is pretty harsh. I can't deny that. But again, J Apologetics, if you're listening to me, you never actually provide the context as to why Maimonides feels this way.
Maimonides was born in the 12th century in Cordoba, and then he had to leave Cordoba due to a very difficult situation there because a new dynasty had come in, known as Al-Muwahidun or Al-Mawhads. They had persecuted not only the Jewish and the Christian people, but the Muslims as well, right? So many people escaped.
So basically, Maimonides' view on Islam was influenced by Muslim rulers that oppressed other Muslims. So yeah, I don't think we should take what Maimonides said really seriously, and this is something that even the associate professor Daniel Buzek said himself. Quote, "This scripture, no doubt written under the impact of news about the persecutions of Jews in Yemen and Maimonides' own sad experiences of the fanatical rule of the Almoravids in Andalusia and Maghreb, cannot, and I repeat, cannot be accepted as a correct picture of Jewish life conditions in Islamic countries in general or a balanced historical judgment, but rather as an expression of anger." And again, if you think I'm just completely waffling, this is probably the most important point of all. Maimonides fled from one Muslim country, that being the Almoravids, to another Muslim country, and eventually he served as the personal physician to Salahuddin, you know, the Muslim that conquered Jerusalem from the Crusaders.
So Maimonides escaped to what? To where? To Muslim lands.
Yeah.
He left Cordoba for where? Egypt.
Egypt, yeah.
Ayyubid Egypt, and became.
Would he not be a surgeon or something like that?
He was a private physician to the Sultan himself.
Yeah.
Which Sultan? Sultan Salahuddin,
No,
the famous Saladin. Yes. So Maimonides, having left Spain, a Muslim territory, for another Muslim territory in Egypt, where he became the private physician, the private doctor of Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi.
This is what happens when you take things out of context. And ironically, J Apologetics was the same guy that just said,
"You can always count on Muslims to lie and distort history." Wow, they really have no concern for the truth at all.
I think I'll let the actual historian do the talking rather than you, J Apologetics, who used a historical figure that contradicted your own arguments, and you, Apostate Prophet, who got all of these claims from Wikipedia. So please, if you guys want to know about Jewish life under Islam, watch the original Mohammed Hijab interview rather than wasting your time watching these hacks.